All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about fostering virtual student interaction and some of the strategies and best practices we can use in our online classes. So
Okay.
I'm gonna start off by asking you a question. Since this is, very informal, it's just you and I. What are some of the ways? Well, first, let me ask you: do you teach asynchronous courses, or do you do face-to-face, high flex? Tell me what type of courses you teach.
Well, it has varied. This semester it's face to face.
Okay.
However, I've done totally online, asynchronous. It has varied depending on the semester.
Okay. So let's think about our asynchronous courses. And so I want you to kind of share with me what are some of the strategies you've used in the past to kind of interact with students because it can be very challenging with our asynchronous courses because everything is done virtually in Canvas at different times of the day. And so tell me, what are some of the ways you interact with your students?
Okay. Actually, when I start the class, it is, a greeting, and I actually try to find out, how has it been going. It's kind of like a setup. Class is friendly. But then I will ask questions about previous class lectures. Raise your hand or turn off your camera, if you know that, if you want know the answer, or you've not done this particular assignment, or you want to know more. And I kind of scan that to make sure, and then I get back, say, okay, time to turn on your cameras again. I also have videos that I put into the modules for them to actually view, and then in small groups, they will like discuss that.
Okay.
And I also have had breakout groups.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to touch on some of those, some of that, and then we're going to look at some other strategies that we can use in our virtual settings to engage with students.
Okay.
So we have three learning objectives. Always like to start with learning objectives. We're going to identify strategies for building a sense of community in online courses. We're going to implement effective communication and engagement techniques. We're going to create opportunities for student interaction and collaboration. Because again, online teaching is totally different than teaching in a classroom. In a classroom, we can, break off in small groups, we can have conversation, but we want to also have those things done in our online classes because we want students to feel a sense of community. We want them to be connected. So, some of what you said, what you do, we have good strategies. And so when we think about those strategies for building community, especially in an online class, one of the first things we like to do is like an icebreaker. And so kind of like when they're introducing themselves, we kind of think of something fun. For example, one of the things that I used to do in my class, or I've done in my class, is I have students when they're introducing themselves, I ask them to also add a picture of something that they want. So something like a bucket list. Tell me one thing that you want or you want to do, and then they find out that some of their classmates have the same bucket list idea or goal. And so that's one of the ways that we can kind of build that community. They start to connect with each other through those icebreaker activities. Small group discussions, you mentioned that definitely we do those. We can do those in our online classes where we can use the tool that is called our collaboration tool in Canvas, and we can make small groups. And so it could be those study groups for the students. They have that group. Sometimes you can let them pick the group they want to be in. Sometimes you can make those groups for them, but it's another way for them to connect with their classmates in that virtual setting. Community building exercises, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, we know about our online forums and discussion boards. We use those a lot in Canvas where we come up with a prompt for that week related to the topic that we're discussing. and they respond to each other. And I love those classes where you tell them, okay, I need you to respond to one or two of your classmates, but when you go back in and you look, they've responded to four or five, and the conversation is just this rich conversation
Mhm.
happening in your online classroom. They don't just settle for the bare minimum of that one or two. They respond to a lot of their peers, which helps build that community in our online classroom. All right. So talk a little bit about the introduction that usually happens the first week of school. Something else that I also like to do, especially for our online classes, I don't make it mandatory because again, it's an online class. But I do offer Zoom sessions in the afternoon where they can come in. They're doing this introduction activity, but they are also joining that Zoom so that we can kind of put a face with a name if they don't share a picture. And that's another way for us to connect in that Zoom session, even though it's not mandatory. So sometimes I get, half of the class, sometimes I get one or two, sometimes I get the whole class. It just depends on the class and the content and the students. Because again, they have lives. The reason why they chose an online class was because they wanted that flexibility of not having to join a Zoom or come to campus. And so that is one of the reasons why, even though I have it the first day of class, I don't require it. It's optional for them. But again, they have activities like this where they're going to take time to introduce themselves to us so that we can build that sense of community for the time that we're going to be working together over those 7 or 15 weeks. So I put this little example just to kind of, and we want to make it fun, and then I also like to relate it to the content that we're going to be discussing in the course throughout the semester. And so after they introduce themselves, they share what they want to share. I ask them a question. And for this is my math, science, and social studies class for children. I ask them what is one of their favorite subjects to teach. And that kind of helps them start to think about the content that we're going to be covering over the next 7 weeks. This here is a collaborative activity. And so not only are they using Canvas to kind of look at what they're going to be doing with this activity, but it's also an external piece to this activity. And so when we want to give them a variety of tools that they're using. And so the only thing that I suggest with the variety of tools is that we give them details of how to complete that activity. And so though there's a purpose of the activity in the activity instructions, if you notice under question 4, I also kind of give them instructions on how to complete that activity, because what happens is once they click on that link, it takes them to another page outside of Canvas. And so sometimes when we give students activities outside of Canvas, they get lost. They don't know what to do next. And so providing those added instructions about what to do once they get to that external link is important. But I do want them to have different ways that they collaborate with each other. Because doing the same old discussion topic can get boring in class, and we want to keep students engaged, and we want them to always be thinking outside the box. And so this is another little way to kind of build that sense of community where they are working together in this collaborative activity. And I'll show you that right now. Let's see if it pops it up. I probably share. And so this is the activity, the collaborative. They are putting together a PowerPoint presentation that they are going to present at a parent night, talking about math, teaching young children math. And so there are a couple of questions that they are answering, and they are building this PowerPoint presentation. And the way they earn their points, because again, this is an external link, they're doing an activity outside of Canvas, and we want to make sure that they do get credit for doing the assignment. Once they post their comments or their information, they put their name behind it. And so when I go in to look at it, I can see exactly who has completed the activity. And so it's just a lot of slides, and there are a couple of questions or statements that they are providing responses to. And this is another fun way for them to collaborate with their peers, even though they're not in an actual classroom. They are doing everything virtually. And the great thing about this is 4 or 5 people can be working on the activity at one given time. It doesn't say that, okay, I have to work on it at 1 o'clock and someone works on it at 2 o'clock. They can all be in there at the same time, interacting with each other as they are um, working on their responses to the statements to build the PowerPoint presentation.
That's very good. I was wondering, do you ever have comments about, um, even though your instructions are there, how to access the slides? I can't get into Google, or do you ever have the I can't open or I can't see
Yes.
comments?
Yes, absolutely. And so one of the things with the Google Slides, I always make sure, because there is a setting where anyone who has that link can open it. And the way when I in the settings, I always says they can also edit it. But then also, I give them the option, depending on the type of device that they're using, um, they can upload their responses in Canvas. And then what will happen is, so that they can get credit, I post those responses in the Google Slide for them. But I do
Okay.
like for them to try different devices before we resort to them using the backup plan. But
Okay.
not everybody's using the same device. So yes, you
Right.
sometimes get. And that's why we have to be intentional about the external resources that we use, because depending on the devices that the students are using, it may be difficult for them to access those tools.
I have another question. I know it's different devices, and because I use Google Earth quite a bit for activities, and some students use it on their phone, tablets, desktop, laptops. Um, I try not that I tell them in advance. It will appear different in advance, that it will appear different. If you have questions, let me know so I can guide you through that. Okay.
Absolutely. I've had students reach out to me and say, I'm on my iPad, and what you're seeing on the desktop, I'm not seeing on my iPad. And so that is us jumping on a phone call. We're having a phone call and we're talking through what she's seeing for me to guide her through and answer her questions. So yeah, it does look different. It is accessible, but it's formatted differently. We do see different things
Right.
depending on the device that they're on. Yeah. And so it's
And
just
and and
making
in this time, and my comment is, and I'm aware of this, I cannot say you can use only
mhm,
a device, and I'm just aware of that.
right.
Oh, I need to take that out of my name.
Right. We don't want to say you can only use this. We want
Right.
have the options, because again, some students can't afford a desktop, or
Right.
all they have is their cell phone. And so I like that you said you what kind of walk them through. It may look different. Let's talk about it, because that is us making ourselves available and building that connection, that interaction, that engagement in class. When students feel like they don't have that support, they don't ask questions, and then they just don't do the assignment. And so letting them know, and here we are talking about effective communication and engagement techniques, making ourselves available to answer those questions for the students so that they can interact with the content is very important. And so to kind of touch on that, um, a lot of what I will be doing this semester is talking about those best practices for online instruction. And so one of the things that is really important is, having a clear course structure. We want to include those interactive activities so that students can be engaged, but it's all in how we map out our course design and what it looks like. that regular feedback. We definitely want to make sure that we are engaging with students and we are providing them, especially with assignments, because some assignments they repeat more than once. Some assignments may look similar in another class. And so we want to make sure that we are giving them that regular feedback so that they can be successful as they move throughout your class and throughout their program. That personalization and support that we give them, that speaks to the feedback. You know, it's easy for us to say good job because 5 people did something that was good, but what did they do? And so we want to make sure that we're personalizing what we're saying.
Yes.
Yes, you did this. Your essay was this. You included this. That's why it was such a great job that you did. And then for those students who are struggling, we definitely want to provide that support. And that goes back to, like you said, things may look different on the devices that they have. So we are going to take the time to navigate them through where they need to be using that device to make sure that they are successful in their completing their activities. And then, you know, I'm a big fan of engaging delivery. I love to interact with my students in an online class. I always tell them up front that very first week, you will see me probably more than you see your peers in and out of Canvas, responding to your discussion posts, um, sending you emails through the grading center, always trying to connect with you because I don't want my students to get lost. I want them to know, even though you're taking this online class, just like if you were in a face-to-face class and I was in your presence, I'm going to be in your presence in the online class. You just won't see me. It's virtually, but you will read about me. You will read what I'm saying to connect with you on a weekly basis. So with all of that, this is just an example of one of my weeks in my Canvas course and how it's kind of mapped out. Canvas can be overwhelming for some, especially to a new student because there's so many links. Why it is a whole lot user friendly than Blackboard was. Students still get lost. Students still don't know how to navigate through Canvas and figure out where to go and what to do. And so I feel like if we start out with this well organized layout, it is easy
Yeah.
for them to navigate. And so one of the things that I always like to start with is a video that kind of tells them, okay, this is what we're going to be doing this week. This is the content we're going to cover. These are the activities that we need to complete. And so then it goes into their module and then the assignments are connected to that module. I always like to let them know that if they have multiple modules that they need to tackle for that week, because sometimes, again, even though this is nicely formatted, it still can be overwhelming to students and they may overlook something. And so just kind of reiterating it here, they know to go through this content. And so then once they finish those activities, they go through module 1, or some students like to go through the modules and then complete the activities. And so for those students, I like to include a wrap-up video where I say, hey, if you're looking at this video, great job. You've made it through modules 0 and 1. Don't forget, you still have these activities. So it's almost like you are reminding students because you'd be surprised at how many students forget something that they were supposed to submit for that week. And so providing that little small nugget for them kind of puts them back on track and will force them to go back and make sure that they've done everything they needed to do for that week.
That's a good idea. I've never really done a wrap up, but what I do is a week starter when we get into class. This is what, don't forget your homework or whatever we're doing. But then I'll tell them exactly what we're going to do when we get into our class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say, I always like to try new things. And so I have these little avatars. You can only make a video 2 minutes. That's all it gives you. And so the wrap-up videos are anywhere from 38 seconds to a minute and 25 seconds. They're very short, they're not overwhelming, and they're something that students will take the time to look at because it's brief. It gives them what they need before they move on to that next module.
So what program is it in Canvas or is it an outside video program?
The avatar is outside. I have used Studio to create wrap-up videos, but the avatar, I can send that to you, the link where you can create those little videos. And they have, what I love about it, it is very diverse. And so in my class, I have someone that's in a wheelchair. I have someone that has a
Oh,
turtle
good.
leg. And granted,
So,
it's a female's voice, but I do include men and boys because I want them to see a diverse group of individuals as they would see in their workplace.
and another question, does it cost to use that? Because I've used Pantone, a couple of other video, and there is a cost. And sometimes I will go back and re-up for the subscription and use it for maybe a special video, but is there a cost?
This one is free. Again,
Okay,
you only get 2 minutes, so you get whatever
that's enough.
it has to be in 2 minutes.
Okay.
But I've used it quite a bit and I haven't been charged. It is the free version because the videos are so short.
Okay.
So I will definitely forward that to you so you can take a look at it. All right, so now let's talk about creating opportunities for interaction and collaboration. So some other things that we can do, we kind of talked about how we bring students in. That very first week, we have those icebreakers. We talked about the collaborative activity. Now we can think about things like group projects and assignments. And so I will say, I haven't met a student yet who enjoys doing group work. They don't like group projects. However, what I tell my students is that in our field, which is early childhood education, most of the time you have a co-teacher that you work with. You will always have someone else that you work with. And so I tell them, look at your group project or assignment that way, that you have this co-teacher or co-teachers that you are working with. And so that is the reason why we do group work, we do group assignments. Think about most of the jobs, they are teams. No one really works alone anymore. It's kind of like this cohort of individuals that are working together. And so, I tell them group projects helps build your social skills, but it also prepares you for when you have to work with a team. And so that's another really great way for them to interact with each other. And again, there is in Canvas where you can build those groups and it's their little group and they can work on their project in that group together. I also like to do peer review and feedback. There are activities where they complete the activity. Yes, I grade the activity, but then I also ask them to post their completed activity in Canvas so their peers can see it and they can provide them with feedback or suggestions or resources to enhance what they've already done. And so they seem to really enjoy that a lot because not only are they getting feedback from me, but they're also getting feedback from individuals who are actually working with young children in a preschool classroom. Virtual student engagement hours is another great one. I try to stay away from office hours because students feel like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to the office, I'm in trouble.
Right.
So I told them, same thing as office hours, it's just virtual, student engagement hours. It's an opportunity for you to connect with me if you choose to do so. They are optional when we are in a virtual setting, but that is your time to connect if you need to on a one-on-one basis. And then I also like to incorporate online events and gatherings. So in Canvas, we have that little form where the students can go. It's like their little cab. They can go and chat. They can go. Some of my students, when their childcare program is hiring, they will post job announcements there. to share with their peers. But also, I like to connect them with different online trainings related to early childhood education, where they are free webinars that they can go to and they can connect as a group. They are also learning about their content. Sometimes I use it as an actual assignment that they will be graded on, and then they have to kind of provide a summary of what they got from the webinar. And then sometimes I use it as an extra credit opportunity for them to go to the webinar and connect with other like-minded people who are working in the early childhood field, and they can get some extra credit. But those are just other ways that we can kind of, build a
Mhm.
student support where they, and I love it because once they've been in one class together, they kind of remember each other, even though it's online. And if we're on a Zoom together, they are saying hi to each other because they were in classes, another online class together. And so that connection and that interaction is there, even though they were in a virtual setting most of the semester. So this here's just that example where there is some peer feedback given for this. The students had to create a math activity that they would give to parents to use at home with their children. And so what I told them was, you are that parent, give them some feedback if you had to complete that activity at home with your child. And so part of what they had to do was they had to upload pictures, they had to upload the instructions of how to complete the activity, and then they gave each other feedback on what they saw based on what was posted. And so they really appreciated the feedback that was given by their peers for that activity. This is just another opportunity.
No, hey, I'm sorry to cut across you. I have a research question about, I noticed that your assignment was due on Sunday.
Go back.
Okay, go back. And it's just due dates for assignments. It has been since online assignments, Sunday at 11:59, whatever. Is there any research, and I guess I can look it up myself, that proves that that's a good date with the best response?
That is
Or,
a very good question.
or, you
Very good
know,
question, and a question I do not have an answer to. But what I will say,
mhm,
with the classes that we design now, they
mhm,
are multiple due dates. And so even when classes, for example, working with QM, Quality Matters, and
mhm,
one of the things that they shared with me when they was reviewing my courses, that you want to make sure, like somewhere in your syllabus, you tell your students that you have multiple due dates, or you want to include those due dates in the syllabus for the students to be able to see. And so this particular assignment right here, because it was an extra credit opportunity, it opened at a certain time and it closed at a certain time, because again, it's extra credit. But what I will say is that I stagger due dates. Here's the thing
okay,
about the staggered due dates, so when we do it for discussion topics, if they have like two assessments, I try not to have both of them due on Sunday because I feel like it overwhelms students. So I will say, depending on what the assessment is, okay, this assessment is due Thursday or Friday, then this assessment is due Sunday, to kind of give them a little bit of time in between.
yeah, okay,
What I will say, and I can only speak for the students that I have worked with, the population, they are used to Sunday. It is something, when we start to change and had multiple due dates, they were all thrown off. And even though I said it in the video, the welcome video, it was posted in the announcement, it was posted in the syllabus, the assignments, they were still stressed out because they were so used to that Sunday at 11:59 due date. So,
okay,
I can't speak to, I'm pretty sure there is some research, but what I can say, the population that I have worked with, now they are getting used to the multiple due dates that they have. But when we first transitioned to it, it was like, oh my gosh, everything was you used to be doing on Sundays. What are you doing? Like you're stressing me out because now I have stuff that's due on Thursday and I have stuff that's due. So it just depends. If you know, I've
Right, right.
always been curious to
I,
ask.
I, I frankly, I changed mine. From I have staggered dates also. Um, I found that they were again, like you said, stressing the Sunday deadline. A lot of the work came in like at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
just under the deadline for Sunday. And the student had not looked at the assignments before, even to, you know, and that's why I was wondering, was this really a good date? But I changed mine, and my students, they know I have the date in the syllabus and I have the date on the module and on the activity of the different date that they're due.
Yeah. I think what I've learned when you think about our population, they work. And so
Mhm.
most of our students, they probably don't even look at anything until the weekend. Like I'm off this weekend, and that's what students tell me. Like I have the weekend off, I'm going to tackle my homework over the
Right.
weekend. And so it's all in knowing your population and works for that population. And for again, they are starting to wrap their head around, okay, your first initial post to the discussion topic is due Thursday. And I tell students to justify, I told them it is the opportunity for us to interact with one another. If you wait until Sunday to post your initial post, who's likely going to respond to you or who's likely going to say anything to you because the week is almost over and the assignment is due in an hour. Everybody's gone to bed or doing something else. And so, I share with them, even though this is an online class, we still want to communicate and interact with each other. We still want to have conversations as if we were in a face-to-face class. And so that is one of the reasons why the initial discussion post must be posted by Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the
Correct.
class start. And that gives me the opportunity to interact with them.
Okay. I'm sorry.
But that's a very good question, though.
Okay.
All right, so this is just another way I kind of connect with the students. Throughout the semester, I do what we call these weekly check-in. It is a Zoom session. It is late in the evening, so I told them, give you time to get home, relax a little bit, eat some dinner, and then join me for a Zoom, and you can earn some extra credit points. A lot of times students are eager to earn those extra credit points, but it is a simple way for me to check in with the students and see how are things going. This one here was at the end of our semester, and I just wanted to know, how did you enjoy the class? What did you get from the class? Do you have any questions about your final project? You're
Okay.
able to give me your feedback. Tell me how you really feel. And I always tell them this is a safe place. I may not like what you have to say about something, but I want to hear it because I want the
Yeah.
opportunity to make things better for the next group that are coming in. And so quick little Zoom session. And I tell them this will not be long unless you make it long. Okay. We won't be here forever. And so it's just a way for me to kind of put my eyes on you to make sure that you are doing okay in your class at this point. Okay. And so I do these throughout the semester to kind of connect with the students, just to let them know, hey, I'm a real person. Even though this is a virtual class, you hear me, but I want you to also see me too. And hence the reason why I have fallen in love with studio now that I know how to put a thumbnail so that I don't always look so crazy at the beginning of the video because I want them to know that I am a real person. All right. Any questions about, we've been kind of, at questions and things throughout, but any questions about anything I shared so far?
Oh, no, there are no questions. There are no questions. We can go on.
Awesome. Okay. So, the last thing I want to kind of share with you is a handout, and this will definitely be available to you. But it is our best practices for building online communities, and so I am going to do a new share because it is a PDF. But it's just, sometimes we get so used to doing things a certain way, we forget what really works and what we should be doing. That is best practices, especially when we're teaching in an online course. And so this handout is just a little summary of what we covered today, just, some of the things that we can do in our online classes, like, making it a welcoming environment, sending the students a personal message or email. I love going in the grading center, and when they submit all their work on time, it's great work. I send them an email and say, great job getting all your work in on time. You did an awesome job putting together your math lesson plan, your objectives. And so I give them specific things that they did that was so great in that email. And they really appreciate just getting that email out of the blue from their professor. Talked about the whole meet and greet. That first day of class doing that Zoom session is optional, but it is there for the students to come and join so that they can meet, not only me, but some of the classmates. Talked about that introduction activity that we do, the whole icebreaker, establishing clear communication norms. This is one of the things that I have gotten away from, but we used to, during the first week of class, the students and I would allow them to come up with their expectations. So they would set goals, they would set expectations for the class, and then we would post them in Canvas so that they could see, okay, now this is what you said, this is what I'm gonna hold you to because you said it. And so they enjoy doing things like that because it made them feel a part of their class. These are expectations and goals that I have created for myself as well as my classmates. We all have agreed on them, and so now we gotta abide by them.
Yeah.
Talk about the icebreaker and the little team building activities that we can incorporate into our classes. We talked about, course structure and how important that is. Just making it easy for students to succeed in your class, because when they can't find things, it is hard for them to be successful. If things are all over the place, or if there are links that are in our class that are not working, it frustrates the students. And so they're at a point where, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna even worry about it, I'm not gonna do it this week. Cultivating a supportive learning environment, that is us being intentional about how we connect with the students. Sometimes they tell us too much. Sometimes they don't tell us enough so that we can at least direct them. We may not have the answers for them, but we want to be able to direct them to resources that they need so that they can be successful throughout the semester, regardless of if they're academic or emotional support that is needed. We want to make sure that they have what they need. Talk a little bit about communication channels and what that looks like, different activities that helps us listen and be responsive to our students. These are some extra ones that talks about different media that we can use. We have to remember that not everybody learns the same way. And so that is one of the reasons why we kind of think about that whole universal design. When we have these activities that we create, instead of students doing it this way, you want to give them a variety of ways of doing things. You want them to be able to allow, I always tell them, allow your creativity to shine. Show me, as long as you meet the objectives, the module objectives and the course objectives, you can create it however you want to create it, okay? You just need to make sure and then when they do that, you can really see their creativity come alive because you have allowed them to create that assignment the way they see fit and that works best for them.
May I share a couple of things I've experienced? I've been in education for a while. That option to create it as you want to create it. So one student, and this was, I know he's out of college working successful and probably some engineer. he created a journey through the solar system. And that was before technology actually became really good visuals. Okay. That was one. I always show that to my classes now. Um, 2 semesters ago, and the students have to do reports, and I always say, present it the way you want to present it. It could be a demo, it could be a video, you can sit outside and video, whatever you want to do. So one student was a gamer, and he took us took us on a geology trip across Southern California in a race car. And he had various stops along Southern California and explained what geological feature or event or whatever took place at that point. He wasn't a good student on other things, but I was just the class thoroughly enjoyed that. We
Because
didn't
it was
know.
his creativity. That was his light bulb went off and
Mm-hmm.
the way that works best for him. I had a student, he was a father, and we were talking about child development. And he created a video, and in his video, he apparently had just finished feeding his 8-month-old daughter, and he had her on his shoulder, and he hits every objective why he created this video with the baby on his shoulder, and he turned her, and it just blew my mind because I was like, how convenient is that? You have this 8-month-old, we're talking about child development, you are hitting all of these objectives and you have this little person to kind of help, walk you through that. So that's one of the reasons why I really love allowing students to be creative with their assignments, because you really
I see.
see a different side of them. And that helps kind of build that sense of community. They get out of their little bubble and they start to really flourish because, oh, they feel good about what they did, what they created, and they met the objectives that was presented for that activity. So that is those are some other things. Constructive feedback, the list kind of goes on and on. We talk about the whole peer review activities, and so this just is a handout to kind of refresh our memory, because again, sometimes we get so used to doing things we forget to add those best practices in to make sure that we see what we see in our face-to-face classes, because it's easier in a face-to-face class to present these things, whereas in an online class, you have to be really intentional about how you make sure those best practices stand out. So this will be available as well. Go back to.
Are you emailing it to me or just it's in a resource?
I can
Or
email it. I will also share it so that it is a part of the resources with the presentation. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
You are welcome. So we are here. And then the last thing is our survey. So you want to click this QR code and share your feedback. And then once you do that, I will share my information at the end, just in case if you ever want to contact me about best practices for online.